Hey, Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by Joseph Campbell again. He wrote it in The Power of Myth. You enter the forest at the darkest point, where there is no path. Where there is a way or a path, it is someone else's path. You are not your own path. You are not on your own path. If you follow someone else's way, you are not going to realize your potential. What does that mean to you, Peyton? And what ideas does this story trigger for you?
Good to be back with you, man. Yeah, great quote. It is an undeniable element of taking our own path that we're going to be in the dark for much of the time. And being in the dark for much of the time has some pros and cons. I would say the pros are it's quite an adventure unraveling before you with novelty and surprise and unpredictability, and it can be interesting in many ways. And the cons can be numerous. You're much more likely to get lost. You will go backwards sometimes, intending to go forwards. You may go up this direction and realize you have to turn around and go a different direction. It will be less efficient on a surface level in the sense that there will be less loss or mistakes made than taking a path that's already laid out. But obviously, it does have much more potential. If you go on a path that already exists, then the beginning and the end have already been determined by other people. It's smoother and therefore it's less immersive and in some way less real, or certainly less novel and original. And obviously many pros and cons. And in our own life, walking into the dark is something that it teaches us lessons. It grows us in new ways. It helps us to see and experience things that we weren't expecting to see and experience, or to grow in ways that we wouldn't have voluntarily woken up and paid the price day in, day out in order to get that growth. And so this is a path, or this is a theme of paths that speaks to me, that I do believe is at the core of finding our potential, is finding our own path and not going down a well-paved road that other people have laid down for us, and as a part of a line of people doing the same thing. Can't say for sure that everything is right or wrong about it. How about you? What is your philosophy on walking into the dark forest and going off the trail, so to speak?
Well, it's the embrace of discomfort. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, man. The embrace of discomfort means you will feel anxious from time to time. You will feel like you're somehow lost, because where there is no path showing up in front of you and you're not sure where to go, there's inevitably sometimes a feeling of anxiety and feeling kind of overwhelmed or lost. But then there's also the feeling of trust and the mode of being, in terms of trusting the universe, trusting yourself and your ability to figure things out, that where you go and as you start to walk the way and the path will appear. It's like the quote from Rumi. It's like these kinds of opposite or complementary modes of being. Either you contribute with your energy and your creativity to something which is bigger than yourself, maybe a path which is laid out by someone else. Maybe you follow a leader which inspires you really much and challenges your thinking and challenges you to grow. And then you follow the path which is laid out, so it's someone else's path. Then you contribute. That's a different way of being than trying to realize your own potential. And it's maybe the challenge the world gives you, or the challenge which is given to you by life itself, because you are unique and nowhere in time and space you as you are will ever exist again. And that combination of your genes and your experiences and so on. So maybe it is also the challenge which life gives to you, that you have to realize the potential which is laid out inside of you. So it is your path. But it's inherently a cloud of opportunities. Like, it's inherently unsecure to live that way, because things around you change, and you will change, and maybe your thoughts will change, and therefore the path you go to try to find out which way is your way is not given and cannot be predicted. But this is inherently in life itself. You cannot predict something which is in a complex enough system, because there we go to computational irreducibility, which is laid out by Stephen Wolfram. The universe is its own best computer. You cannot simulate the universe because you will reduce it. So any step in a complex system, you need to take a step to determine the next best step with the new kinds of information you can take in, because you cannot predict a complex future. You can only chart your ideas into the future and say, maybe it will behave like that, and probably it will behave like this, but there will be things which you cannot control. There will be things which you cannot see, and there will be unknown unknowns on your path. So this is why it is maybe also an encouragement to trust in your ability to figure things out, to build up your capability to deal with uncertainty, to deal with the stuff which you don't know, and figure out how to best take the next best step and proceed. So Peyton, what do you do when you are in the dark in the forest and there is no path and you want to chart your own path forward? Maybe you have an idea or a thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to touch on one of your points, there is this relationship with our skin in the game and our active cultivation of resiliency and even anti-fragility. There's the common metaphor of a wolf and a dog is predictably fed every single day. He has this stability, this predictability, this safety. But then when his owner dies, he's going to starve. Whereas the wolf every day must go out and find his next meal, hunt his next meal. It's never secured. It's never waiting for him in the fridge. But yet there is no event that will, where the music stops playing for the wolf. He will always be able to go out and make his effort to go try to make something happen for himself. And I think that going into the dark forest, taking risks, following our own path in a path that hasn't been laid out for us, hasn't been walked ahead of us, hasn't been paved by somebody else and lit up by somebody else. We will proceed through fear, which can teach us trust in a way that mere abstractions without life experience cannot. We will pass through overwhelm, which will teach us surrender in a way that just abstracting about these experiences without having them cannot. And we will experience lostness, which teaches us how to find our own way and helps us to practice the skill of finding our own way. So walking through these forests in the dark, we must learn the skills of navigation on our own in a way that is trained, learned, and becomes more and more of a part of our natural capabilities and our capacities to walk. And that means that once we have the ability to walk through a dark forest, we have the skill set to go walk through another dark forest. Whereas if we walk on a path, it doesn't prepare us to go walk through a dark forest. And so a relevance for today is that when the future is changing dramatically, when the whole paradigm that we are in shifts dramatically due to technology, or I mean, other things could theoretically shift it too, but technology is going to shift it if something doesn't beat it to the punch. Then we're all going to be walking through a dark forest together. And likely the people who have experience walking through dark forests are going to be in a much better state of preparation than those who have never had to go outside or get off the pavement before, who have only seen streetlights and pre-prepared shelters and haven't had to build their own and use a compass. There is going to be a difference in folks' ability to navigate depending on whether or not they've had to navigate on their own and before. So the shelter, light, and a paved road prepared for you won't teach you how to make your own way. And that being said, it's not that all dark forests at all times are a wise decision either. And it's not that this is a black and white equation where some set of people is superior to another set of people, or some set of choices is always black and white for a priority narrative conceptual reason is going to be the wise decision. Some dark forest we should not walk into at the wrong time. And maybe if we just passed through a dark forest and sprained our ankle, we shouldn't go sprinting into the next one. And so, how do we have discernment? And when is the time to step forward into the dark forest? How should we be strategic about these things in our life? And what are the paved paths that might be what's best for us, even within the broader journey where we will have both?
What a great question. It's about the hero's journey and the call for adventure, the call to adventure. I guess you feel it, what is right for you. And if you trust yourself and the way you lead your life is coherent with what you feel about is right for you, and you have like a clarity about that, then you can listen to what your body tells. And this is especially important also in the small day-to-day things, like, is this person which I'm conversing right to be around with, or should I invest in this person as like a business partner, or in the relationship with this person as kind of a business partner? And if it doesn't feel coherent, you should definitely trust your inner guiding system, your inner navigation, your compass. And if it feels right, if there's like a connection, and then definitely should pursue it. But the call to adventure sometimes is latent and silently calling you, and you know that there's a path into the forest for you. And to realize your potential, you have to follow this calling. And if you trust your calling and your ability to listen to, which sounds pretty maybe esoteric, but has been laid out in many, many stories and myth before our civilization, in many different stories of our ancestors even. So I think this is like a principled way of approaching life and approaching life's challenges and approaching growth. And therefore, if you hear the calling to your hero's journey, then by all means trust yourself and dive into the realm of an unsecured life, a life which holds much more adventure probably, and much more stories will come out of it, even though you won't maybe make much more money, or you won't have the status you once had in a secure job, in a position, in a prestigious firm or something like that. But you know then that it is your way. And if it's your decision, it will become the right decision. If it's your decision, you become the architect of your life. And so to say, you become the architect of the path towards realizing your own potential. And with that, trusting yourself, trusting life to unfold however it will unfold, and trusting yourself, listening to the call to adventure, and then going onto the adventure and trying times and times again to figure things out, enhance and improve your capability to figure things out. This is a good mode of being, which we both know what it gives to us and what challenges we face. So Peyton, what does this path which you are on as an entrepreneur and facing challenges, what does it give to you psychologically, spiritually? What are the challenges you face?
I would say, starting with spiritually, one of the best things for me about this whole thing is it showed me my own limitations. It taught me surrender in a way that my paved paths before this never would have. When I was working in finance at a corporation, there genuinely was nothing in that building that I needed to do that was outside of my comfort zone or was not straightforward, was nothing was risky, nothing was dangerous, nothing was not easy, nothing was beyond me. But this path that I'm on now, tons of stuff has been beyond me. I've tried and failed at so many things. I've made tons of mistakes. I've been in situations where I didn't know how I was going to get out of them. And so being overwhelmed, overpowered by forces on the outside with no safety net and nothing to fall back on, and feeling this exposed vulnerability to the chances and events, this taught me surrender in a way that no other experience before it in my life ever did. It showed me that, yes, the universe is forever outside of my control. And even when I need to go as hard as I can in there, I still have to hold the result with an open palm and trust in the divine, trust in the unfolding of the universe, trust in reality. And this was a lesson that was so hard for me to learn, and probably the most valuable from this whole thing, that nothing that I have is actually ultimately permanently mine. Everything is on loan except for the light itself, except for the innermost essence of my being. Besides that, even my body, even my personality, even this human life, even every possession I have, even every relationship I have, they're all on loan. And all of these things are outside of my ultimate control. And it taught me that trying to control a reality that's outside of my control is one of the most painful experiences that you can have when things aren't going well. It really causes so much rope burn to hold onto this rope and get it yanked over and over out of your hand. And so by making mistakes over and over in my way of being, it trained my mind to recognize cause and effect earlier and earlier until I could see the effect in the moment of the cause. And it wouldn't have happened if I was on a path where I didn't get my ass kicked many times. It wouldn't have happened. It also teaches you on a psychological basis your own resilience, or the evidence of your own resilience. You start to build up these personal I don't know, personal experiences that you witnessed yourself bear some situation and endure it and overcome it and make it through it. You witnessed the moments of despair when you were in that, when you thought everything was going to be hell for the rest of my life, and yet it changed and you emerged out of it and you grew from it. And so then the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, when you feel this overwhelm, or when you feel this fear, or when you feel this dread or this despair, you can begin to recognize that when I feel this way, it tends to be that I actually can make it through this. And it tends to be that there actually is a light on the other side, even if it doesn't appear that there is one. And it actually plays out that I do just put one step in front of the other, and I am capable of endurance on whatever must be endured in this. And that on the other side, maybe I didn't profit from this in some external way, but these hardest, most painful experiences did grow me in a way that I'm grateful for, and in a way that I couldn't be doing this challenge now if I hadn't gone through that trial back then. And so it gives you more big picture lucidity on the super intense up and down waves of these things, as well as on your own fears. When you've seen yourself pass in and out of these cycles many times, you begin to recognize a pattern, even as you're still immersed in the current vortex that you find yourself in, although certainly not perfectly. How do you think about the psychological and spiritual growth that we get from walking into the dark forest? And as a separate note, how do we know if this is the right dark forest to walk into, given that some of them are infested with poisonous snakes, or with great dangers or whatever? Sometimes this is not the right dark, like it's not, you don't want to go into just any dark forest, and maybe not at the right time. How do we be discerning about the adventures that we embark on?
Great questions, man. I think it's about your aptitude, your inner skill set you have and you bring with, and the mix of your skill set you have and your curiosities. And also about your inner motivators, where you maybe prioritize and reflect about, okay, what motivates me actually? What does motivate me? It's like, is it status? Is it freedom? Is it connection? What is it? And if you have some reflection and do some exercises and find out what really motivates you, and then you can match it through the lens of your motivations and through the lens of your skill sets. What actually gives you energy when you do it? This is a good sign. Where do you lose track of time when you do it? This is a sign with what kind of forest you also could delve into the darkness with. Because if you lose time, and if you find yourself being totally immersed in the flow of doing or being in a certain mode when you do something, then it's a sign, a pretty good sign, that this is the right forest for you to go into? Or what do others see when you do it that they have to pull you away from it if you do it, because you lose yourself in the tasks? So it's about knowing yourself, knowing what kind of skills you have, and knowing which combination of skills is probably pretty valuable when you apply it. And then also knowing what motivates you, and then combining this, and then you hear sometimes a calling, okay, go that path. And there's a prestigious vision someone paints into your mind with, oh, if you are a doctor, you will be so much more valued by society. People will greet you and you will have authority over nurses and so on. But then again, what do you have to give to gain that prestige? You have to give so much time of your life. You have to give so much of opportunities, what you could do with your time, which maybe is more suitable. And some people, they really love being a doctor. I don't say that's wrong, but sometimes it is the case that prestige even warps around our belief about what we like to enjoy, because it seems like other people respect us more if we do it. This is what Paul Graham frames prestige in a way. So we should always watch out if we get invited to something very prestigious, to do something very prestigious, or embark on a career path which is very prestigious, because sometimes it takes more from us than we can gain from it. But if we know what motivates us, if we know what our skill set is, and if we hear some calling which suits this kind of ability, a challenge which suits the ability, then we can get some kind of meta flow around it. Flow, like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi says, flow is like if your skill set matches the challenge and has the same level in this, and then you have a chance to lose yourself in the flow and produce really good outcomes and become one of the best people to do whatever you do. But if you do that with your own skill set, with your own aptitude, and with the challenge of forests, kind of forest characteristics, then it's also a good match that you could walk into the forest, and because you know you would enjoy walking there regardless of whatever happens, because it is intrinsically motivated, then it's the right forest, in my opinion. So I would say it's an encouragement to get to know yourself through reflection, and then pursue the path which makes you feel more and more alive. And if you feel alive, you probably affect others with your aliveness as well. Maybe that's also what Jesus meant by become like children again. If you watch children play, they play in a state of aliveness. They play in a state of curiosity and wonder and awe, and they are pretty awesome to watch when they play. So it is their aliveness which also inspires me. Therefore, when I do stuff which is suiting my skill set and I lose track of time, I go into flow, then I feel alive. What do you think about feeling alive and the whole match and fit of skills, aptitude, motivation, and challenge which faces us, Peyton?
When you talk about feeling alive, I also think about real world feedback, real skin in the game, real consequences for our decisions or mistakes. That I think is another core element of walking into the dark rather than walking into a paved path. Because on a paved path, you're just walking within a corridor. You don't actually get feedback for the wrong turns that you take, where you run into something, or if you start to see the terrain change in such and such a way and you don't pick up the signs and you find yourself caught in the mud or caught in some bad situation, you don't actually stub your toe in the same ways and get feedback on your decision making, because you kind of have the illusion that you're making a lot of decisions when really you're more so being shepherded by the path that you're on. And for me, how this played out was I was very, very left brain before I walked into my own dark forest. And when I found myself there, I made a lot of decisions with my left brain, and the left brain being the language, logic, have a narrative, and use that narrative to make decisions based off of my map, and use that very dominantly. Just really glue my face to my map and insist on using this as my decision framework. And in the first year in my own dark forest, staring at the map, I made so many mistakes that really caused me immense challenge and pain, and really made my life way more chaotic than it needed to be, because I was making decisions with words and logic rather than trusting my intuition, trusting my right brain and my feel for what was going on. It wasn't until I faced this feedback and I experienced really painful feedback. Like, for example, I hired an employee the first year that I owned my business who, when I was on vacation, broke into my house and stole some of my stuff and my girlfriend's stuff. And it was such a hard, and I was 25 at the time. It was such a hard experience for me because I felt very violated, and I felt like my girlfriend had been too. And this was both of our home, and we didn't feel like we were totally secure in our home. And is this going to happen again? And all of this. It was a really, for me, psychologically, I really did not enjoy that experience. It was a very hard piece of feedback, but it absolutely trained me to use my intuition, because when I hired that guy, my left brain liked it. My left brain was like, yeah, he's saying all the right things. He has this experience. He knows this person that I also know. My gut and my right brain was telling me I can't trust this person. But my left brain had a narrative of, oh, I need more people, then I need this, and he can do that, and he's not that bad about this, and I can see a story of his potential. And I listened to my word brain over my reality territory, right brain intuition. And that was a painful lesson that I really needed to learn, actually, and that I learned absolutely the hard way. And then the last question I have for you is, how do we discern what type of a dark forest we're about to enter in? And so, as an example, I went on a hike maybe a year ago where I was in the jungle in Colombia, and I really wanted to find a jaguar. And so I went way out into the forest at night, hours into the forest at night. And then and I was alone, and it became completely dark. And I realized, I'm like, oh shit, I'm looking for a jaguar, boa constrictors in here, and this jungle is actually controlled by a paramilitary group who sometimes does kidnappings, and there's also poisonous snakes. I was like, this is not like the dark forest back in Ohio, where the worst thing I could run into is maybe a beaver or a deer or something like that. I found myself in the wrong an unwise dark forest. Yes, I was off trail, and that can be great, but in this place at this time, it was unwise for me to embark on this journey. And I hadn't thought about what forest I was going into. And in my own life, in my career path, I also have walked into the wrong dark forest where I didn't really think about what are the upsides and downsides of this bet I'm about to make. Do I have more to gain than I have to lose? Or do I have more to lose than I have to gain? Which is, in fact, an important question to ask ourselves. Is this asymmetric in the right way or the wrong way? What I am about to commit myself to, what I'm about to expose myself to.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the last message I'll give, is patience and discernment. And I honestly needed to learn those lessons the hard way. And so maybe this is a part of stubbing my toe in my own, it definitely is a part of my growth journey, that it gave me better discernment by learning this lesson the hard way. But just as a final call out, not all dark forests are created equal by any means. And we should be wise about those we walk into. And with all of this, we should be trusting our inner GPS, our inner compass in our body and our intuition to guide us and course correct us, and not put too much opacity into our left brain word maps. They're useful too, but we cannot ignore what our body is telling us about what we're about to do or not do. And sometimes non-action is better than the wrong action, even if we do wish to be forest explorers.
Definitely.
Any thoughts on discernment, on what paths we take, or any other concluding thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, you answered it very well, and you don't want to take the decision which has no downsides whatsoever, but you want to make the decision which has more upsides than potential downsides, and has an asymmetry towards leaning towards the upsides versus the downsides. You don't want to mindlessly just take risks. You want to take risks which have potential rewards which are really great. which can benefit you and let you live and survive for
Mm-hmm.
another few moments, years, or decades. So, judgment obviously is very important, and learning through the mistakes of others is as wise as learning through your own mistakes and through your reflection on your own mistakes, and especially the mistakes which felt really painful, or even the pain points. You will learn much more having skin in the game, because you always try to lean on the side of survival. You try to be less wrong and less wrong, because you try to mitigate the risk of total ruin. And that's why it's probably wise to not take mindless risks, but to mitigate the risks you can see, and to only embark in the forest where the risks you take are in proportion to the rewards you gain, and that there are more rewards to be gained than things to be lost or yourself being ruined. So this is also my intention, to discern again the forests which I have in front of me and choose the ones which have the most upsides and an asymmetry towards not losing much but gaining more. What is yours, Peyton?
For me, it's a lot about accepting the whole. Like, I chose to embark into a dark forest. I was on a paved path several years ago, and I left it on purpose because I wanted to walk a different route. I wanted to do something that was less confined by the structures and institutions that I was in. I wanted to find myself and to learn these skills of survival and navigation on my own. And so now that I find myself in this dark forest that I'm in, an uncharted land where I can't see into the future, and I need to go secure my, or I need to navigate survival and navigation anew in each new day. I shouldn't be surprised by this. I shouldn't be lamenting the cost that I chose to pay for the thing that I decided to pursue. And so let me not want to have my cake and eat it too. Let me not deceive myself and resist this part of reality that is absolutely a part of this big picture. Let me embrace the uncertainty. Let me embrace the fear. Let me embrace the overwhelm. Let me embrace the lostness into the extent at which these arise along the path, and recognize still that just because I've learned things in the past and I've grown in the past from my challenges doesn't mean that this thing that I'm in right now is not another part of my growth and development and learning and increasing capacity for navigation and anti-fragility in time. I still am being grown. I still am being challenged for a reason. I still am walking through the forest for a reason. And I shouldn't resist the reality that I, in fact, freely chose for myself. And I shouldn't be surprised that these remain elements of the terrain in which I find myself. So just more of a surrender and a trust and a recognition that you can't have one without the other. This is all one whole gestalt. And I shouldn't deceive myself into thinking that things should be any other way, or that I should have all of this without all of this. They are one big picture. How about you? Any other closing thoughts from you?
Only to take in everything I can and try to choose the paths which make me feel more alive.
Agreed.
Thank you very
Beautiful
much,
intention,
Peyton.
man.
It was a
Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
great talk. It made me feel really alive. So I'm pretty sure this is a dark forest which is made for us.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes. No poisonous serpents in this one, fortunately.
Yeah. Have a great one, man. See you soon.
Thank you, man. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.